We're on chapter 16. We're going on to section 2, and we're talking about mammals. And so we're going to go over some orders. The first orders are going to be the aardvark, the elephant, the echidna and platypus, armadillos, sloths, anteaters, pangolin, and marsupials. So these are some of the mammals. The first group we're going to go over. So let's begin. Domain classification. Well, first we have to get this right. We have, and you need to know this here, you have the kingdom, the phylum, the class, order, family, genus, species. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So here we have phylum, we have a subphylum of the vertebrate. We went over this here, so we have one subphylum here. So we need to know this type of classification. So if we look on this picture, we're going to have, as for what domain we're onto the kingdom, phylum, Mammals, Carnivora, Canidae, Canis. That's when we're looking at the coyote and the wolf down to the species. But let's look here. We have the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus. So species. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with the domain at the top. That's really the domain basically. Well, we're not going to talk about that, but we know the domain is first, and then we have the animal and the plant kingdom. Then we go down from here. So I always remember kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Very important to know the classification from the domain down to the species. Mammals. There's about 30 orders that evolutionists have said by how they evolved. And we're not going to go over that because we don't believe that they evolved. So there's actually 5,000 species that are divided into 18 orders based on what? Physical characteristics. They all have different physical characteristics. Linnaean, that's the system of classification, is not an evolutionary type. And basically Carlos Linnaeus, he put everything together, all the animals together in their different characteristics. So some have species like the aardvark, and some have over 2,000 species like rodentia. So some have just one species like the aardvark, and some have up to 2,000 species in their categories. So we're going to begin. We're going to start talking about mammals. So, tubula dentata. Tubula dentata are aardvarks. So, they're designed for digging holes and eating ants and termites. You can imagine. They can eat ants and termites, all that snout there. They live in the savannas of Africa. Their name means earth pig. And they were named by the aardvark by Afrikaners that were Dutch people in South Africa in the 1600s. They said they looked like an earth pig. They have a long snout, long tough ears, short legs, and long, thick, muscular tails that taper out to a point. See how well, I can't really see this picture, but the tail goes into a point. They weigh 140 pounds. They're 4 to 5 feet long, and excluding the tail, and their tail is 18 to 25 inches long. So they have a long tail. They have strong, blunt claws for digging and tearing into ant nests. They eat ants. Their nostrils that can close to protect them from dust. So they can close their nostrils. And they have a slender, sticky tongue, about 18-inch tongue. A very keen sense of smell, of course, and very thick skin that protects them from insect bites. And they have a little hair, not much hair. Let's just say that. That's an aardvark. More about aardvarks. They make good meals for lions, really, and even humans have used them for medicine in the past. They're hard to find because they're nocturnal, and they bury in underground homes, so you don't really see them much in the day. They have a keen sense of hearing, but they're very hard to surprise. Usually they hunt alone, and are very timid. The female bears one young in the midsummer and keeps it close for 6 months and teaches it how to dig. And they only have a few teeth that are far back in their jaw. They differ from all other animals, or mammals I should say, because their teeth possess little tubes that radiate from the cavity. That's where they get their name, tubulodentia, or tubulodontia, and that means tube teeth. They have tube teeth. Those are aardvarks. Proboscidea. Proboscidea is the elephant. Probos, it means a trunk. So it's the largest living land animal, and it has a trunk, like a probe, Proboscidea. So there's 3 living species of this: the African bush elephant, the African forest elephant, and the Asian elephant, which is the Indian elephant. 300 species are known from fossils, though. So they only have these 3 living species, but they have 300 old species, extinct species, yes, mammoths and such. So there's 300 species that are extinct of the elephant. The African bush elephant is larger. It has bigger ears. And the African forest, smallest, but it has large ears too. African elephants have those large ears. The largest elephant recorded is 13 feet tall, 35 feet long, and weighed 13 tons. With that bulky body and those column legs and large head, the head's actually lighter weight than the rest of the body. The trunk is 6 feet long and weighs 300 pounds with 30,000 different muscles. 30,000 different muscles in its trunk? Oh my goodness. The elephant. On with the elephant. With the trunk, the elephant can smell, drink, and feed. It has a keen sense of smell and a keen sense of hearing. The trunk, can hold up to 2.6 gallons of water. And it squirts this water into its mouth or into the air so it can give itself a shower. It's herbivore. It's a herbivore, what means it eats grass, leaves, and branches in very large quantities. The wild bull male, they call the male the wild bull, may consume 300 pounds of food a day. Just think if you had to eat 300 pounds of food, of vegetables. That'd be quite a deal. The tusks are made of ivory, and they are enlarged as their incisor teeth. Tusks used to be ivory. They would a lot of times kill the elephant just to get that ivory tusk, which is very terrible when hunters did that. And they use these tusks to uproot small trees so they can eat these small trees. The molars are 1 foot long and weigh 8 pounds. Can you imagine molars being 8-pound teeth? And they are replaced 5 times in their lifetime. So the last time is when they're about 40 years old. So after their teeth wear out, which is around 60 years old, the elephant may die because the elephant cannot chew, and it has to chew all of these huge plants, including trees. Sirenia are sea cows. They're aquatic dugongs and manatees. Manatees are called sea cows because they graze like cows in shallow lagoons and rivers and coasts, and eating algae and grass, of course. So they come to the surface about every minute or 2 to breathe air. Manatees and dugongs have no hind limbs. Their forearms act like flippers. So these little flippers in the front. They live entirely in the water, requiring support of the water to help them move and breathe. If they would leave the water, their rib cage would collapse under the mass of his body, and the sun would burn their skin. They have to live in the water. Ancient sailors used to call them sea nymphs, or they used to think they were mermaids. Can you imagine thinking this guy was a mermaid? That's why they called them sirens or Sirenia. as similar to mermaids. That's their name, Sirenia. Sirens were mermaids. I think that the sailors had been out in the sea a little too long to think these guys were mermaids. Dugongs. They have forked tails, reach 11 feet, and weigh about 900 pounds. One kind lives in the Red Sea. That's why in the Bible it talks about the Hebrew tabernacle was covered with the sea of badgers. Well, these weren't really badgers in Hebrew, they were sea cows. And others live in the Indian Ocean. So look at these dugongs. Manatee. A manatee, they're larger than a dugong and like 15 feet to, and sometimes they weigh 3,300 pounds. They live in the coastal waters and rivers of Florida, the Caribbean Sea, northeast coast of South America, Amazon River, rivers of the Western Africa. They live in a variety of places. Let's just say that. Their tail is not forked, and their upper lip is divided into two halves, which can work independently. Those two halves can work independently. In the past, they were hunted for abundance because of their fat and their tough skin and their meat. But most are protected today and considered rare in most cases. Monotremata are echidna and platypus. They live in Australia, New Guinea, Tasmania, from the hot deserts to the rainforests and the alpine mountains, so in a variety of climates. Look at this guy. Ugh. They're the only oviparous egg-laying mammals. Remember, viviparous means born alive, but they are oviparous. Oviparous meaning eggs. Echidnas are spiny anteaters, and they are 12 to 18 inches and weigh about 4 to 15 pounds. They have these short spines that are like 2 inches long over their whole body, and between them they have these coarse brown hairs and hair on the underside. It's a picture of them. They have a long snout, long sticky tongue, and they lap up ants and termites. They live on ants and termites. Echidna, quite a strange animal. Echidnas also, they have strong forefeet with flattened claws for digging. They have long, narrow beaks with no teeth and a very small tail. Their vision is very weak, but they have good hearing and a keen sense of smell. They can dig into the earth quickly when they're threatened, and only their spines show when they're digging in the earth. So all you see is these spines sticking out, and they can roll themselves in this tiny little spiny ball. And they live in the crevice of rocks or burrows, and they hunt alone, live and hunt alone. They don't go in pairs, they're alone. Echidna, strange. Monotremata is platypuses. Very strange, too. They're about 18 inches long, 3.4 pounds. They live both on land and water, and they're designed for both land and water. Their fur is very velvety, and it looks like velvet, and very waterproof and smooth. Their bodies are long, flat bodies, and they have a paddle tail for swimming. They have very strong claws that are webbed for swimming, but on land, this is very strange. I never knew about this, but on land, they pull up their claws, pull up their webs, I should say, under their paws, exposing their claws for walking. So when they're on land, they have claws that come out, and then these claws go inside when they're swimming. Wow, they're like a transformer. They have a distinctive bill, not like a duck's bill at all, but they're very soft and rubbery, and very sensitive skin on their bill. On land, they use this bill for digging, and as water, it's a sensory organ. When they're in the water, their eyes and ears are closed underwater, so they have to get about by their bill, and they use this bill so they can touch and find their way around. because they're basically blind and deaf in the water. More about the platypus bill. There are special organs on its bill that detect electrical fields to locate frogs or crayfish at a distance. Can you believe they have these tiny electric currents that in these frogs and crayfish? They can tell these electric currents and basically get around by their platypus bill? Man, God is so specific that they can have a bill that detects electrical currents. They live in tunnels that they dig on the banks and streams, on the edges of the banks and streets, and they prey on and eat worms, frogs, insects, and crayfish. They scoop up the dirt and sand with the food, and they keep this dirt and sand with their food in their cheeks and in the pouches and the surfaces, keeping them in their area. And they crunch them up as they crunch them up with the sand and dirt. They're toothless, and so they use these minerals that they're crunching up these minerals to help crunch up their food. Since they don't have teeth, they have this little gravel, using gravel as their teeth and spit out the gravel, and they don't need teeth. Isn't that amazing? Xenartha. Xenartha are armadillos, sloths, and anteaters. Xenartha means strange joints. Indeed, they look like they have strange joints, don't they? They have extra joints that are not found in any other group. There's 3 families: armadillo, sloth, and anteaters. They're only in South and Central America. They're very different from each other in size, shape, body covering, feeding habits, metabolism, and habits. They don't even look alike. Look at these guys. Do these guys look alike? No, but they have strange joints. As you can see, they're strange joints. Xenarthra. So let's talk about them. Armadillo. The armadillo was named by the Spanish in the 16th century, and it means little armored one. Basically, it has covered with these neat rows of tough plates jointed across their back. Some can curl up in a little ball and tuck underneath their feet for protection. Here's some pictures how they're going into these little balls for protection. The species that live in the United States has 9 bands of armor, and other species have 6 bands of armor. You can tell what kind of species they are. Some are about 6 inches long, but the giant armadillo of South America is 35 inches and weighs 59 pounds. That's pretty big. They're very shy and nocturnal. They come out at night and they burrow into the ground to hide, so it's kind of hard to find them in the day. They use their claws to scrape the ground for insects. They eat insects, spiders, earthworms, and snails. And they always bear identical twins or quadruplets, all in one litter that have the same sex. So they have twins or quadruplets. And then we have sloths. So slow sloths, right? They spend the majority of their lives hanging upside down. And then they have these long curved claws that hook on to the tree branches. They eat, move, and sleep in the position upside down. They have almost no tails or ears, and they have a blunt nose there and a peg-like teeth. Their home and food protection is always in the trees. It means they live in the trees. They feed on leaves, buds, and twigs in the trees. And they camouflage among the leaves they usually have this greenish gray here color. This one has brown to camouflage. The hair is from belly to back. That's opposite. Their hair is opposite from other mammals. Why? Because when they're hanging upside down, the rain needs to run off of them. So they have basically their hair going in different directions. So when they're hanging upside down, it can just come and slide right off. Isn't that neat how God made their hair opposite because they hang upside down? Types of sloths. We have two types, the two-toed and the three-toed. Here's three toes and here's two toes. And they're among the slowest moving animals. Their body temperature is very low. They can get down to, body temperature get down to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, between 75 and 91, a lot lower than ours. On the ground, they can stand, but they can't walk on the ground. They have to be hanging from those trees. To move, they sprawl and on their bellies and drag their limbs on the ground on their bellies because they can't walk. The AA, or IA, as they call it, I just call it the I. So look, AI, but it's called I, is three-toed and it lives in tropical South America. It's 2 foot long. It gives the distress system, I. That's why they named it that. It's the slowest land animal with a speed of 10 foot. They only go 10 feet a minute in the trees, and they go even slower on land. Kind of cute, aren't they? Anteaters. The anteaters, we have the giant anteater, or they call it the ant bear. This is a huge anteater, about 6 foot long and 86 pounds. They have long claws and powerful forelimbs, and they tear down anthills. And they can consume up to 30,000 ants and termites a day. That's a lot of ants. The tongue is usually 2 foot long, and it's covered with this sticky secretion so the ants can stick to it, can't get away. The giant anteater live in tropical South America and as far south as Paraguay. Very unique. The anteater habitat. They use the burrows of the animals or logs for their home. They're diurnal, which is that just means they're active in the day. So they do get around at day, especially in uninhabited regions. But they're nocturnal at night, and if it's a very dense population, a lot of maybe people around, they're going to come out at night. So they can come out at night or they can come out in the day. And they're covered with this very shaggy, bristly hair and a long, bushy tail. This picture here. And you can't really see the tail, but they have a long, bushy tail. It's like 2.5 feet long. They have no teeth and poor eyesight and poor hearing, but they have a acute sense of smell. They can smell 40 times better than humans can smell. Pholidota. Pholidota is pangolins. So here's a picture of pangolin. Can you imagine that? These are scaly anteaters, and they have this protective hide that looks like an armadillo, but they have eating habits like an anteater. So here we have like a cross, looks like a cross between an armadillo and an anteater. Their skin composition is very different. You see the scales. Pholidota means scaly, and it describes these overlapping plates that cover the body. See, they're plates that cover their body. The plates are made from fused bundles of hair in the skin, rather than armadillos are made from like a horn type material. But these are fused hairs that look like these plates. Pangolins also live in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Africa, south of the Sierra. So they live in a variety of environments. They're 5.25 or 5 1/4 foot long, and they include this long, thick tail, as you can see with the plates. They do have a sticky tongue that's 10 inches long, and they're nocturnal and shy, and they're difficult to find because they're nocturnal and shy, but they're hunted for their meat still. And then, of course, they can roll up into these tight balls when they're threatened. They do have poor vision and hearing, but a keen sense of smell. Look how they roll up into these little balls. I would never know. I think this looked like a pine cone. Marsupials. Let's stop there. I'm going to go into marsupials because there's a variety of marsupials.